the end of this, halfway through this meeting, we're going to start doing some updating and things like that while everybody's here. I think it's quite appropriate to do that. I was at a funeral all morning, so I'm a little discombobulated here getting my stuff together, but it was for a Lieutenant Justice and a long-time retired firefighter. But he was one of our civil defense directors way back when. I don't even know what the years are. But that was when civil defense, we had cans of Spam at the fire station and some Geiger counters. And I think that was the extent. So it's kind of interesting to see how much disaster preparedness, civil defense, and preparation has evolved since those days. It's kind of appropriate, and on the day we're doing this on Lieutenant Justice and this thing, so I want to thank Lieutenant Justice for his service. And we'll start with the regular meeting. We have a lot of things to cover, so we'll try and get going. Plus, some of us didn't have lunch, so we'll make it as quick as we can. We did have a chance to attend the LEPC meeting. A few folks in this room attended it last month. And one of the discussions we've been talking about lately is a nuclear event at Pilgrim Power Plant and what we would do on the Cape versus what the folks are doing on the other side of the bridge. And Director Schwartz was at that meeting, and we are fortunate enough to have Representative Dave Vieira today, who was also at that meeting, and he may have some more input. So at this point, I'd like to ask Representative Vieira to come up and say a few words and give us an update on what happened at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. The REPC meeting, it's great to be at the regional meetings and seeing Falmouth attending. And we know for a number of years Falmouth hadn't participated, but we are building on the successes and the strengths of the previous chairman of the LEPC, and now with Chief Sullivan at the helm, we're actively participated in the county with the region. So my hats off to the town of Falmouth, the LEPC, and Chief Sullivan for bringing Falmouth full circle into that. So the meeting we had down in Harwich, the last Regional Emergency Planning Committee, we had a presentation by Kurt Schwartz, who is the Undersecretary for Homeland Security and Emergency Management and the Director of MEMA for Massachusetts. And it was really around the discussion that I know you've had at a few meetings here previously about the plans for traffic and evacuation. So I wanted to talk briefly about sort of the two phases of what those plans are, and then bring you up to date as to what's going to happen moving forward. And I just had a conversation this morning with Chief Baker, and got an update from him. He's the chief from Mashpee, and he is the chairman of the REPC, the Regional Emergency Planning Committee. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission works in cooperation with MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and requires that any community within a 10-mile radius of the plant have an evacuation plan. So each of the communities that are within that 10-mile radius have an evacuation plan, and actually the town of Plymouth, they have a staging area for their evacuation plan, which is in our county. It's actually at Scusset Beach. And you know, we have CERT members here from Falmouth, but the Cape Cod CERT team are the TSA managers for the Plymouth site. So if there's an evacuation in the town of Plymouth, the CERT volunteers are trained every year to go out as a team and to manage the Scusset Beach location where the ambulances and the school buses and buses go. They get their route maps, and then they go through the town to do pickup in certain locations, and then they evacuate out west to various points of drop-off, mostly in the Taunton area, New Bedford out west. So within that 10-mile radius, there's an evacuation plan. What we haven't had outside of the 10-mile radius is any coordination with the planning within the 10-mile radius. And I know that a group of citizens have been pushing for that, and they've been very active in talking to all the folks, raising all of the flags to get folks at the table. And I think that our hats go off to them as well for getting Kurt to come down to the meeting and to really get the discussion going with the REPC and what's happening within the 10-mile zone. So what we're looking at now, the Regional Emergency Planning Committee is going to be appointing a subcommittee at next month's meeting to develop a Cape Cod emergency plan around any incident that happens at Pilgrim. What will we do? We know for the first 6 to 8 hours they're saying that they're going to be focusing on evacuation of the 10-mile radius zone. So what happens during that period of time on Cape Cod? What do we tell folks? How are we coordinating? How are we getting ready for what happens after that 8-hour period? So that type of planning will be done by the REPC. Chief Baker says they're going to appoint a subcommittee. And then the existing draft plans, which are being reviewed within that 10-mile zone, They will be representatives of the REPC, particularly the Upper Cape towns, working with MEMA and with Entergy to make sure that those plans coincide. For example, the bridges. What happens with the bridges? If we got people moving off the bridges and they're trying to shut traffic flow down off Cape to evacuate the town of Plymouth in that area, how do those things work together? And that's a level of planning that hadn't happened in the past. The planning off Cape sort of happened in a vacuum. And the commitment now from MEMA is to expand the planning onto the Cape, and the commitment from the REPC is to establish a subcommittee with a Cape-specific plan. Also at the meeting, there was a little discussion about, well, what happened over in Japan and Fukushima. They were telling American citizens to get out of the 50-mile zone. If they're getting out of a 50-mile zone, why is the NRC telling us to plan for a 10-mile radius? And the reason for that is the 50-mile zone is actually part of the nuclear paradigm, and that is what's called an ingestion risk zone, pathway zone for ingestion. The 10-mile radius is inhalation. So the immediate release of ionized radiation from the plant creates the highest risk for inhalation for folks that are within the path of the plume within that 10-mile zone. Doesn't mean that the radiation stops there. It means that in the immediate aftermath of the release, that's the greatest impact. So these evacuation plans are done around that 10-mile zone. And there's question is, well, should we expand that to 50? And that's a public policy question that will continue to be debated. But we do know that the paradigm now is 10 miles for the inhalation pathway, 50 miles for ingestion risks, and MEMA just conducted over the past year an exercise where they looked at a radiological release that may have gone all the way down to Providence, Rhode Island. And they looked at how would that impact all of the communities in that 50-mile zone. They assumed that the wind was blowing southwest from the plant at the time, and they developed a strategy of how they would do that. I think what's most important for us to do here in Falmouth, one is to continue to be engaged at the regional level so that we can have representation on the subcommittee, working with the Cape plan and working with the off-Cape plan, that coordination between the two. The second part is, through your EOC here and your operations here, and I know some of the packets were handed out today because I guess we're getting ready for the hurricane potentially, or the storm coming up. I'm not sure exactly how detailed those plans are, but if we don't have a component that details our operations around nuclear activity, now would be a great time to focus in on that. Because as we're developing the regional plan, we can be putting the specifics of how Falmouth is going to react into these packets, making sure that our department heads are ready to be able to respond at the EOC here with the information that's available in the packets that each of the departments have. The last thing I would say is there's been a lot of discussion in the past, and there had been some distribution to the towns of potassium iodide, the KI pills. And potassium iodide helps with dealing with the thyroid gland and ionized radiation getting absorbed in the gland. Whenever I worked in emergency management with the sheriff, I always said, isn't it better to not be exposed to ionized radiation than it is to try to get the ionized radiation to not be absorbed by your thyroid gland? So we've got to start thinking about what are our public messages and how do we help the public prepare to shelter in place, prepare to do the things necessary so that they're not exposed. The second part is, if they are exposed, where are the KI pills in Falmouth? What is the plan for distribution? How old is the stock? I mean, these are questions that I think we need to continue to work with our Department of Public Health in town and find out how many do we have, how old are they, when are we going to have to replace them so that we can look at a useful replacement plan. If that's what the town wants to do, you have a line item, it's fairly small every year for emergency management in the town budget. So maybe we're looking at, are some of those funds going to be used for this in the future? Those are questions that I think the LEPC needs to consider. But how can we prepare citizens? They do it in Plymouth because they have a lot of money. They have an emergency planner paid full-time, all of that. That's money that comes from the power plant because they're within that 10-mile zone. We don't have that, but what we do have is a great LEPC infrastructure here in Falmouth where we can begin to get those messages out of how do you shelter in place? What are the details of sheltering in place? You know, when you're out on the street and you hear it on the radio that there might be a release at the plant, what then do you do? We know what people are going to want to do. We assume by human nature, people are going to want to leave. And that's where this plan has to be coordinated, because we can't have everyone, when they hear something on the radio, just leave. We need to protect them in place and then have a coordinated evacuation if necessary. So that's a little bit about where we're at. Hopefully at the next REPC meeting, we'll see some representation from Falmouth in the Upper Cape. I know Bourne and Sandwich also are looking to be represented on that subcommittee. My office requested, as state representative, I requested that MEMA give a copy of the current draft plan to every emergency management director on Cape Cod. There are some emergency management directors that contacted my office and said that they were unable to get copies of the current draft. I know there's some of the citizen folks actually who got copies, and then I hear from some emergency planners they couldn't get copies, and we're like, well, this is very odd. If we're going to be planning together, then we all need to see the plan that we're working with. So I made that request after the last REPC meeting and offered to work with the REPC. If MEMA's concerned about document control issues, and for those of you that have taken ICS 3 or 400, you've learned some of the document control principles of emergency management. If that's necessary, then we'll have a briefing on document control and distribute the documents. So I haven't gotten a response back yet from MEMA, but if we don't hear back by next week, we'll reach out again and make sure that all the emergency management directors on the Cape have copies of the plan so that we can begin planning together. Chief, that's all I have. I don't know if there's any questions.
I appreciate your time. Does anybody have any questions for Representative Vieira?
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. There's a few things on the agenda we may go is one is it was talking about selection of a tabletop exercise for November. So does anybody have any suggestions for that? We were discussing amongst ourselves and locally in this building, we were thinking of maybe a large-scale snowstorm or something that's upcoming if possible. So maybe like a, I mean a significant event like a 4-foot snowstorm or something like that, which would cause some issues. Unless somebody has some other ideas or suggestions, that's what we're hoping to do next month, is actually have the tabletop exercise for that. I say unless someone comes up with a better idea, we're definitely open for that. And one of the other things we also would like to do is it seems to work well on the REPC, and just to spread out the workload and the interest in our LEPC, I'd like to set up, I think I mentioned it last week, last month, was set up some subcommittees. And what I may do is, likely before next month's meeting, I'm going to send out an email asking you to give me some ideas. I already have some ideas what I think would be good subcommittees, such as a sheltering group, a CERT group, the Red Cross group, town services group, the nuclear pilgrim group. So I have certain ideas, but I definitely will look for some input and ask people to get back, and then maybe we can address that again next month. Or in the meantime, I'm going to ask a few folks that I've worked with well in the emergency management, and I was thinking of Peter, Dan, and Captain Dunn to sit on like a steering committee that we can meet again at one point and discuss what we think may be good committees to be involved in the group here. And one thing, everybody's also now aware of our upcoming weather event. We've already been getting updates from MEMA. There's a conference call scheduled for tomorrow at 12:30, which we'll be partaking in that to see if they have any updates. It looks like we will get some sort of effects from the storm, whether it's just going to be some rain and high winds or a direct hit. Soon we'll find out soon enough. But what I'd like to do is go around the room. Maybe I should have done that earlier, because there's quite a full room, and just say who you are and what your organization's done, if anything other than monitoring the weather, or if nothing, is what we've done to get prepared for this event, which will likely be Monday. I'll start off. My name is Mark Sullivan with the Fire Department and Emergency Management of the town. And a few things we've done, we directed our mechanics to check all our generators, even though I was told we just checked them in September. We're rechecking them to make sure they're all up and running. We're getting all our old chainsaws out, tuned up, ready to go. And other than that, we're doing our routine readiness for everyday readiness. So, other than that, we think we're getting ready, and we have all weekend to better prepare. And that's what we're going to be doing, in addition to naturally monitoring the weather. Would you like, Kathy, you guys?
Sure.
I'll start, and maybe we'll just go right around. If you don't have anything to say, just say pass, and we'll go on.
Kathy Marks, Public Works Admin Division, and we're just
We're still working on Hurricane Irene, Kathy.
still working on
so-
Hurricane Irene, or tropical storm. We still haven't gotten all of our reimbursement or finished the work. So we still have a debris pile that's out there. So we're hoping to get rid of that actually Monday before the storm. But we're also just getting ready to staff EOC if it opens with personnel, and also Public Works simultaneously on Monday and into Tuesday.
Great.
Peter McConaty, Town Engineer. Just two items. We do have an updated set of plans for the high school. It's been turned into the, we're working on the regional. I don't think we've had the last drill yet, but we're pretty much regional. We do have an updated set of plans. It shows all the generator plugs, the clean electric, so if the power goes out, what will be on generator plugs. We went through the building, they're all located on the plans. There's 4 sets, there's a site plan, and there's each level of the building. We have them available. They're at the fire department, we have them in the CERT team. The second item is we had good time, and we started construction on the Chappaquiddick seawall yesterday. The wall is basically gone. 100 feet of the wall is gone. The contractor took it down. And I think the emergency would want to know about that for access. The contractor at this time is driving steel in front of the wall, and tomorrow and Saturday he'll be armoring the wall with the remaining stone and also the concrete from the wall. And there'll still be 1 lane of traffic, but they plan to be already up and going on Sunday, Monday.
Great. Thanks. In case to go on that, Peter, we had a meeting one night out at the high school with a few of the folks in this room and some other Red Cross representatives to see when the high school becomes a shelter, if it goes on auxiliary power, not all the plugs are run off. So that's what we were testing. Even though they were marked, supposedly, we wanted to physically check the ones to see if they did have power in the event we need them. Because in these days, we need a lot of power, whether it's for medical equipment at the shelter or just people in this day and age, everybody has a gadget telephone or something, so that was a pretty important thing. And I appreciate everybody's help on that night. Mike?
Mike Mel here, Town of Falmouth IT Department.
IT's been helping coordinate all the phone systems, getting the messagings ready, so if we have to open the EOC, the public can know by calling Town Hall or the DPW, getting the library one set. Tomorrow we will be setting up the EOC in here. We will coordinate any information going out to FCTV and maybe the chamber. We'll be working on getting all the public service announcements out, getting them out on the website, helping the shelter so that there's phones there, and that the people checking in the shelter as well as the people in the shelter have phone connections, internet connection, some television for the shelters down there. We've got some extra Sprint phones, so if people need some push-to-talk phones, it's always good with the really important people. Maybe they have both Sprint and Verizon cell phones in case one tower or the other one goes out. And we'll have the EOC ready to go for Monday morning if we need it.
Thanks, Tom. We called Tom this morning to make sure we could get this set up. We're going to have the room set up on Friday. This area, I'm not sure if everybody here probably does know, but this room becomes our emergency operations center during the event. We set it up, but it takes quite a while to get all the outside telephones and radios working here, and that's the IT helps us out quite a bit with that. Thanks, Tom.
I'm Peter Cook. I'm from Falmouth Library. Like Tom said, we change our messages for the public because they come to us for information. In that regard, we usually set up for these events a TV set that will show for people visiting the library what's going on, usually the Weather Channel with the volume off at the library. In addition to that, one of the librarians made sure when we to point out the meeting that typically our schedule on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, if this event were to continue, is 8:30 at night, and the public does come till 8:30. So obviously, advance notice will make sure with that they know not to come to the library, because they will come to the library in the middle of a storm to return their books, no matter what. So,
Dedicated clients.
so, yeah,
All right, thanks, Peter. Dan?
I am Dan DeNordo, I'm the Town of Falmouth CERT Coordinator. We've been working very closely with Peter and FFRD and all the town departments to become regional from a shelter standpoint. But what we'll be doing between now and the event is we'll make sure that we're able to bring our own resources to bear, but also that if we choose to open the shelter, other than a regional shelter for any reason, that we're capable of doing that. And as Peter pointed out, a lot of work has been going on with a lot of help with a lot of volunteers to kind of get the high school ready for shelter operations. You may remember in Irene, we've used it before, but a lot of changes have gone on in the layout. It made it a lot more capable of handling, user-friendly. And what Tom mentioned is gonna make a huge difference from a communication standpoint. So we got a lot of work to do between now and then, but lots can happen, so.
Thanks. Yeah, we were fortunate enough to actually have some funds to expend to do some of these things. Thanks to Mr. Dupree and the school committee and the high school committee. Some of the leftover funds were utilized to help us put some of these telephones and radio communications in the high school to act as an emergency shelter. So they were very helpful. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Anita Carasso. I'm here from Mashpee, and I'm concerned about the situation regarding Plymouth, which is one of the reasons that I'm here. And just to answer something that was brought up before, in case people aren't aware of it, is it appropriate for me to say now about the KI pills?
Speak your piece.
I believe that all the KI pills pretty much on the Cape have an expiration date due in 2013. So assuming one believes that these are necessary to give out to people, these things are due to expire. So if you want to have up-to-date pills, probably one needs to do something about it now. Also, again, assuming that this is a positive move that needs to be taken by the various towns, including Falmouth, of course. In many cases, the towns are planning to give out 1 pill per person in a family. In some cases, 2 pills, rarely more than that. And if we are in fact expected to shelter in place, I believe you would need more than 2 pills. So that's something to research and to act on, I would think. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for your input. David Kerrigan, our health agent, at a seminar today, and he couldn't make it. So he does have access to those pills, and I'm sure he's aware of that date, and if not, I'll make sure he is. So I'm not sure about how to replace those or how, but I'm sure we'll look into that. And we have had discussions with him discussing a possible dispensing plan of what's now at the school, so. And where we're working more and more on protection in place, I think you're right, I think it's more of an issue, so. Thank you.
Todd Bidwell, Island Queen. We're out of commission now for the season, so really our only focus is whether the vessel will stay at our dock there in Falmouth Heights Road, and we'll tie it up securely, or whether we'll move to the hurricane barrier south of us.
Thanks.
Steve McDermott, Maintenance Director for the Falmouth Housing Authority. We've been, like the chief said, we're getting all our equipment ready, vehicles, chainsaws, filling everything with gas, making sure everything's operational, checking all the batteries for our flashlights, emergency equipment, removing any lawn furniture that could go airborne, removing window air conditioners in a number of the units, checking gutters and downspouts for water flow. We also have generators that we're making sure we have one that's a diesel. Most of them are natural gas. And we're reviewing our handicapped and disabled list for people that are on oxygen and wheelchair bound, so that we have an updated list to work with if we need it.
All right, thanks. Helen?
Helen Bazina, Assistant CERT Coordinator. Dan and I have been working closely with staying in touch with, in case we need to open the shelter, how we go about getting in touch with our members, and so Dan and I have been working on that.
Bob Griffin, Assistant Harbor Master. Our plan is broken down into 72 hours, 48 hours, 24, and 12. And The preparation, we're checking marinas in town to see what boats, how many boats are in the marinas. Our marina, we generally, in a hurricane situation, have it completely emptied. We have the last 2 hurricane situations. I'm not sure what's going to happen this one, because it's a question of whether it would be a hurricane or not. Other things we're doing is reviewing the docks to find out, to make sure we can shut off the water and electricity to those docks. Contacting the drawbridge in Woods Hole so we know when the drawbridge is going to close, so that when people can get in and out. Preparing who we're going to have in the Emergency Operations Center, who's our liaison going to be, because we want to have somebody over here during that time period. We've begun to patrol the harbors to make sure preparations are being made. And at the end, we will haul our harbor master vessels and coordinate with Sector Southeast New England. The plan is there's no emergency response during a storm like this. We won't go out, and the Coast Guard won't go out either. They'll haul their vessels, and that's how we realized that in the last couple storms. So we won't respond during the storm. We'll go out after the storm, or we'll go out just before the storm, but during the storm we won't. And then the response, there'll be people on duty, as I say, but nobody will go out. And lastly, we're trying to plan for recovery, getting a list of damaged things, maintaining records so we can get reimbursed, taking photos, and coordinating damage to harbors and so forth so we can reset buoys if necessary, or at least send out notice to mariners.
Thanks, Bob. What Bob said, if we do as far as working for the town anyhow on reimbursement, what Bob mentioned about those taking photos is huge. And everybody's probably got a little camera available to them. If not, let me know and we'll buy you one for $100. But every town department should have one. The people we send out for assessments, if they can take some pictures as they're doing it, that can be invaluable later on during recovery time and looking for some funds if it gets to that point. And I have an email here from BMC Justin Longville down at the Woods Hole Coast Guard. And I see Paul back here, so maybe he can speak on it when we get down to that. But he said the same thing you did, Morris, that they'll go over to Hale Pond during the event if it's that bad and hold out there, but be immediately available afterwards. John?
John Boyeri, Falmouth Public Schools, just getting the schools prepared for the weather, depending on what the weather's going to be.
Mark, the police superintendent of schools, just echo what John said, we've notified all the custodians in the building to secure the buildings, all the buildings. I've also talked to the high school staff, and they're ready, should the need arise for the shelter, and everything's ready to go, so we'll coordinate that way. I did reach out to the bus company. Last time we had an incident, you did use buses.
We did.
Well, there were buses available, so they're ready to go if that need arises.
They have somebody maybe possibly available to
Yeah.
us that we can put on standby out there.
And we have
I hate that. I mean, this is unfortunately, we're wishy-washy over the weekend, waiting to see what happens. But it's
but they've been contacted, and we have a handicap bus that they could be available as well.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Thank you. My name is Rich Weatherby. I'm the director for the Emergency Department over at Falmouth Hospital, as well as the co-chair of emergency preparedness for the hospital itself. Actually, we're in our preparatory phase right now and gearing up for tomorrow morning to go into a phase 1 severe weather and hurricane plan, kind of contingency plan, that will be specific to our overall clinical operations and facilities management. And looking at that, various downtime procedures, again, contingency plans for that. And based on the weather, we'll kind of gear up and progress, if we had to a phase 2, which would actually be an implementation phase and opening of the command center itself. So we're prepped and hopefully not ready to go for anything yet.
Thanks.
Karen Kadira, Director of Human Services. Just internally, we made sure today that all the clinicians had the phone numbers of our clients who have appointments on Monday and Tuesday in case we close the office. We don't want clients trying to get into appointments if the roads are unsafe and that sort of thing, so we would call them at home. Other than that, we have just the staff and a group of volunteers who would be available to assist the senior center, who has a list of elders and frail folks that they would be calling. And they take the lead on that, so we're available to them.
Anything else to say?
If you need me, call me. I'm Bruce McGardo with the Beach Department. Fortunately for us, we pretty much winterized our beaches already and pickled our buildings. So our prep is going to be just to make sure our gates are secure so they don't go flopping around. And also, we normally would take pictures of the beaches in case there is damage. So we have a before and after with the hope that perhaps if there's a chance of reimbursement, we have some way of identifying what we lost and what we had.
Great.
Captain Dunn from the Police Department. Right now, we're pretty much just monitoring the weather as you all are, and we have a plan in place should the storm gets closer, as far as hiring extra personnel to have on. We'll probably do something similar to what we did the last time when we will have a lieutenant over here at the EOC. We'll also probably stage our cruises at the fire stations like we did the last time. It just makes it easier for response so we don't have our officers out driving around during the storm. But we're ready.
Bill Sparks with Soul Oceanographic. We have a severe weather plan in place. It just goes by where the storm location is. We have 4 different conditions, and based on that, we go to different levels of what we do. Basically, right now, we're monitoring the storm. We have a ship in port, so we work with our port office, and they'll determine whether to stay in place or go down to another port. We're doing the same thing, checking all our chainsaws and getting ready, checking our docks to see if we can clear our docks and things of that nature.
Ron Ray, Woods Oceanographic. Bill pretty much summed it up, but tomorrow could be a busy day if we pull the trigger on our plans.
What's your first planning plan? Go 4 to 1 or 1 to 4, or what's your least?
Least would be 1.
So what's your first plan?
And then it's based on storm track and projected landfall. But we would start moving things to higher ground on the dock.
Okay.
And then as far as moving a large vessel, that decision probably wouldn't be made until
Late in the game.
late in the game, yeah. So we'd start going after the low-hanging fruit first. So get the stuff off the dock that could float away,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Just curious.
But certainly internal communications have occurred, so people have been put on notice that starting tomorrow it could start getting busy.
Thanks.
Hey, good afternoon, Chief. Yeah, Justin apologized for not being able to make it today. So I'm representing the Coast Guard sector of Southeastern New England down in Woods Hole. I think it was Bob. He brought up some great points from the Harbor Master point of view. So I'll just, again, we're on the National Weather Service conference call series, so we'll be on that again tomorrow, keeping a close eye on it as well. More than likely, we'll issue what's called Safety Marine Information Broadcasts, SMID. So that'll put a broadcast out to all the mariners, just advising them of the storm if they don't know about it already. And at some point, probably into Saturday, really encouraging people to get back to port that are out there. So most of you probably know that a lot of the New Bedford fishing fleet comes through Nantucket Sound, right by Falmouth, on its way back to port. So we'll be talking to those guys as much as possible. So. Again, we'll be working with the harbor masters and probably natural resource personnel to get a good sense of what the ports look like, who still have boats in the water, who's on moorings and so forth. We have our own kind of range of photography that we'll take as well, port pictures, pre-storm photos. So in the event that we have to do a post-storm verification, we get a sense of what was in port prior to the storm. Impacting the region.
The government get reimbursed by the government?
What's that?
Can the government get reimbursed by the government?
Yeah, and I think it was Bob who said it as well. We do, our boats, more than likely, if a hurricane is imminent, they more than likely do go to New Bedford as well. So we do rely on the aircraft to do any at-sea rescues while our boats are kind of tied up behind the barrier itself. So that sort of is a normal process for us. But if it's a tropical storm, I know Chief Longville will probably more than likely put his boats over in Eel Pond. That's probably the most secure facility for them. We try and keep.
That's what he said in the email.
Yeah, we'll try and keep them in the region as long as possible before they have to go behind the barrier. So.
Now, you're talking Eel Pond. It's not behind the bridge. Is that?
No, I think
you can't get there.
You know what? I'm not even exactly sure where he's got a couple piers identified though, where he's got him. He feels pretty comfortable that he'll be in good shape there though. as long as it's not a hurricane, so. And that's all I have for now, but well, if anybody has any questions for me, I'll stick around for a little bit.
All right, thanks.
Hi, Jim Marcello, Environmental Health and Safety Manager for the Marine Biological Laboratories, also responsible for the disaster plan book. We'll begin our initial phase of the storm preparation tomorrow. We have a 24-hour, 48-hour, and 72-hour phase, so the 72-hour phase puts us at basically just securing everything. And then we'll follow the storm closely. If we get through the 24-hour phase, then we actually have a skeleton staff that spends the night at the MBL, just to get the facility back online as soon as possible. Usually it'd be myself and the facility manager and director and electrician, plumber, and a few people like that. So we have a pretty structured plan. It works very well.
Great, thanks. Phil?
Bill Noda from the Falmouth Amateur Radio Association. We'll be meeting tonight, our people have been notified, so we'll be meeting tonight talking about staffing, who's going to be able to staff the various points. We staff this room, we staff the hospital, and also now we'll be staffing the high school. So they'll be working out that, and obviously as it gets closer, we'll be setting up the radios and equipment to go ahead and accomplish that.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I'm Bill Monty, Director of Maintenance at the JML Care Center, and pretty much doing like everybody else, getting ready chainsaws, gas, and gonna wait a little longer to see what staffing looks like, nurses and CNAs, see how it goes.
All right, thanks.
Debbie Rogers, Falmouth Community Television. We have a number of slides that are prepared and ready to run on disaster preparedness. Those will start running today. Staff will be available all weekend to post announcements as we receive them from Tom or from the EOC people. Unfortunately, when our power goes out, we go out. However, we do have a full complement of equipment here and the ability to go live from here, breaking into all three channels, the channel 13, 14, and 15, the public education government access. So if the power goes out, we've got at least 2 people here that are trained to use the equipment. We can send people down here, but we're prepared to be able to go live from here if we need to.
It might be a good time to try it out. Thanks.
Mary Beth Weiser, Water Superintendent for Falmouth. We're out today checking our generators and making sure that we've topped up all the fuel, and also making sure we have enough chemicals for drinking water.
Thank you.
Chuck Martinson, Natural Resources. I think my colleagues from both the Coast Guard and the Harbor Masters echoed much of what's being done on the waterfront, so I won't review that again. Obviously, our equipment being brought up to speed, winches and chainsaws and that sort. All of our animal crates have been recently counted and cataloged, and we have those numbers secure so we know exactly what we're looking at should we have to house animals, and the Animal Control Division will be taking up that function.
Thanks. Deputy, I don't know if I missed anything.
I'll be on my days off, so I don't
That could change them.
Fire Chief covered that.
Bill?
Jill Irving Bishop, I'm the Senior Center Director, and we have updated our Senior Emergency Response database, and tomorrow we will initiate the phone calls with a standard message, starting with our most frail seniors, those with disabilities, on oxygen, living alone. We will also have our COA van gassed up and our driver ready for the seniors that do want to be transported to a shelter if one is open.
Great. Thank you. Ditto?
My name is Lilia Franton, and I live in North Falmouth, and I'm here as a concerned citizen. I'm a member of Pilgrim Anti-Nuclear Action Committee, and of course we're just most concerned about how we're going to be able to handle any kind of an emergency that would arise out of the problems that Pilgrim is presenting to all of us. And I do want to say I'm very impressed by all of the people here and how involved they are in preparing for emergencies, and I just hope that Pilgrim doesn't present an emergency that we won't be able to handle.
Jenna Nazarevitz. I too am a resident of Falmouth, new member to the LEPC, and I want to thank you, Mark, serving and Representative Vieira for bringing some attention to something that has been neglected through the years because of Pilgrim and NEMA's lack of having a plan. So I thank you all, and I thank everybody here. This is the first time that I've been able to see all the faces that are involved in keeping Falmouth safe. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
I'm Larry Ferrer from the Steamship Authority, and basically right now we're monitoring the situation. The ferry boats will run until the captains think it's too dangerous to run, or until the Coast Guard tells us that we're not going to run. And all along this process, if there's anything to report, we'll make sure that the public knows when the boats are going to be available. There's a surprising number of people who want to go over. And, so there's traffic both ways, right up to the last minute. So, but it's keeping the public advised of the
How do you usually do that? Radio or?
Email, mailing list, reservation office, anywhere that we can get it out. But the boats will run until the captain says it's too dangerous, or the Coast Guard shuts it down, and then the boats go to shelter.
And do they shelter in place or whatever port, or will they head to New Bedford too?
It depends. Sometimes it's behind the dike, and sometimes it's depending on where the storm is coming. It could be on one harbor or the other on the island. So
Whichever one looks best.
wherever the soft spot is.
Thank you. Craig?
Craig O'Malley, EMS Advisor for Falmouth Fire. Just preparing like we normally do for everything else for medical emergencies, just ensuring everything's going to be stocked up in case the storm does hit.
All right, thanks, Craig. I'm saving you for last, sir.
Oh, it's fine, don't need for that,
Suso?
Chief. Julian Suso, Falmouth Town Manager. I do want to thank the Chief for convening this meeting, certainly timely on this topic, and to thank everyone for coming together and working collaboratively in the event that we are placed in harm's way early in the coming weeks. So I thank you all for that, and we look forward to working together with you in a simulation or in a real thing, whatever comes. Thank you for everyone. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. It's great. I appreciate everybody's input and preparation for the different organizations, what they're doing. We have passed out those booklets that we have, something like this, to some of the major departments. You can see if we need any more, but we only have a couple left here. First, say the building department, you may have a, okay, and if there's any changes, if you've had to make in yours, if you had a chance to glance through it, or if you want to take a moment, stick around and take a glance through it, because we're now, as delinquent as everyone else, scrambling at the last minute to get prepared, but we want to make sure we have the right point of contacts and any other information. So if everybody just takes a quick glance in there. If you see anything that's different or should be changed, let me, myself, or Kim know, and we'll take care of changing it.
Do you want to explain, because we have some new players, what those are for?
Where are they from? You want to explain? They're pretty packets.
Yeah. The packets are for those people from your particular town departments, or from, who are your MBL if you want to send a volunteer to the EOC. This is your department's contact, basically your department's calling tree, so to speak, to make sure that everyone that is going to play a role in the emergency situation is informed, that you have their correct emergency phone number, etc. Like the schools, they would send a representative. It would have a list of all of their school superintendents, not superintendents, but the principals and the janitors and such for the schools in case there was a certain situation there. The DPWs would have their emergency contact numbers for all the sub-department heads, as well as anyone below them that they will be contacting to ensure that everything is running smoothly, all the communication is out there and such. So primarily, this is for the person who is in the EOC to be able to reach out to their other department members.
It has some valuable information. We have something similar here for the town, where we have a department, it's sort of a organizational chart. as well as a calling tree, who calls who and what when we need to activate the EOC. And I'm sure everybody in here probably knows too from their training that there is a distinct difference between an EOC and the LEPC. The people in here are the planning people for the community. We're the local emergency planning committee. The EOC is actually an operational outfit, whereas the emergency operations center that the town puts together when there is a hurricane or a natural disaster of some kind. But many of the same key players are in this room now that are in that same EOC room. Over the weekend, should the weather get really bad, tomorrow they say we're going to get a direct hit, we'll probably be having department head meetings maybe throughout the weekend to get prepared for what we're doing, instead of waiting until Monday morning. So if you see any information in there in your kit, or you think your group should have one, please let me know.
I also made some copies of the most updated town hall extensions. And normally what happens if we do have a major event, town hall is closed obviously, and
there's an EOC telephone number that's manned here all the time, and that's broadcast. We put that out through the radios, through the local TV channels. And I think Tom's gone. I think we have it on a recording board.
We can change the town hall line to reflect.
Send it right over to here. So we would always have somebody, that's part of our responsibilities for the town, to have somebody answering the phone. And have a couple of firefighters that have been working throughout the years, and plus we maybe need some more help from the town hall, so we figure that out.
But this is sort of a who's who in the town, so I'll put them up on the front desk if anyone has looked through their packet and found that they have an outdated. Most likely, since we've had a lot of transition, everyone is probably outdated at this point.
And Kim has taken the time to update some of these, and we were as bad as getting prepared, which we were trying to do better. We had some old things for setting up in our EOC, and these have all been updated with the players, including the town manager, myself, instead of Charlotte Newton. So things have changed. So we're trying to keep up to date with it. Yes, sir.
Is the main EOC line the same, the number 495-2602?
Yes. That'll never change.
We have, when the EOC is set up, in case nobody's seen it, we have that line set up. We set this up in a horseshoe with all the different players, like the police, fire, DPW, and different agencies that go around. And that's their point of contact to get the word out and take care of the business that their organization has to take care of during the event. It worked pretty smooth last time. We had Irene. It was more, I wouldn't say more like a drill, but it wasn't that bad of an event, but it worked out well. And as we go, we can upscale it or downscale it as the event goes itself too. So I believe that's all we have for the day. So I said, if anybody has any changes or have any issues that you think you need to discuss to get ready for the preparation, hopefully we're just preparing for nothing. We won't have to worry about it. I think that's all I have for today. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns to put this aside for the immediate concerns? Is everybody all right with that snowstorm as far as for a tabletop exercise for next month? Just a change for a hurricane. I mean, maybe we should have done a hurricane when the hurricane comes down. It's too late now. Anything else? Anybody? Dan? Forgetting anything? Shelton?
No, I think it would be valuable for Peter and a few of us to talk a little bit after the meeting, if we got a few minutes, just from where we were to what we might want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to take everybody else's time. So if that's all we have, that's great. I appreciate your time, and we'll be meeting next month, unless maybe we'll be seeing some folks, if you're involved with the EOC, maybe Monday.
Where are these kept?
Right here. Thank you very much.
All right, 'cause we have